Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today we are going to jump into the time machine and travel way back to the early 2000s as we take a look at this. From the graphic novel Kingdom Come, we are featuring the anti-hero Magog, produced by DC Direct. Alright, so this goes without saying, if you haven't read the graphic novel Kingdom Come, I suggest you go out and do so. It's amazing. It's one of the most beautifully illustrated comic books ever, period. It was a story written by author Mark Waid and illustrated by artist Alex Ross. It pretty much told the story of the DC superheroes in their later years. It was a much more dystopian future. There's a lot of mistrust between the humans and the superheroes. You know, many of the iconic superheroes like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, some of them went into hiding or kind of isolated themselves from the rest of humanity. And during that time period, we saw the birth of like new superheroes like Magog right here, who kind of had a much more severe and rougher take on their views of justice. And it was a cool story. It was such a big deal that DC felt the need to produce a whole line of action figures based on the story. And this is one of the figures right here. This is Magog. He's one of the important characters from Kingdom Come, and definitely one of my favorite characters from that time period. This action figure I picked up maybe 4 or 5 months ago at the Kane County Toy Show, which is one of the largest toy shows in the country. It's located outside of Chicago. It's held maybe I want to say maybe 3 or 4 times a year. There was a vendor at the show that was selling a lot of DC action figures. They were all like super cheap, and I bought a bunch of them, and this was one of them. I actually do have this figure loose in my collection, but I just really wanted one that was mint in box. The box isn't the greatest. It's a little bit banged up in some areas, but I still think it's a nice display piece. Beautiful box art. Behind Magog, you see one of the group shots from Kingdom Come as illustrated by artist Alex Ross. And on the side, kind of like a brief synopsis of the story. You know, you have the armored Wonder Woman from the tail end of the story. You have the Flash, Deadman. On the opposite side, you have a close-up portrait of the action figure, and it's done in such a way that it kind of mimics Alex Ross's artwork from the comic book. And then you have the graphic novel cover over here. And like I said, if you haven't read Kingdom Come, go out and do so. It's amazing. And then we have Wave 1 featuring Superman, Wonder Woman, Hawkman, and Green Lantern. Wave 2 features Batman, Shazam, Red Robin, and Kid Flash. Wave 3 has Deadman, The Flash, Magog, and Armored Wonder Woman. And it's kind of cool. Nowadays, McFarlane in their DC Multiverse line, it seems like they're going to start giving us some Kingdom Come action figures. Some months ago, they gave us the Armored Batman right here, and it's a pretty neat figure. So, you know, for me, fingers crossed. I really hope McFarlane dips into the world of Kingdom Come and gives us more of these iconic superheroes. Like for me personally, I'd love a McFarlane take on Superman, a Wonder Woman, but also a Magog right here. There aren't too many Magog action figures to the best of my knowledge. I do have another one. It's a DC Classics Universe figure produced by Mattel back in the day, and that's a nice action figure. But for me, there's something special about this one. It really embodies, you know, Kingdom Come in that time period. Alright, so I'm going to apologize in advance. We are not going to take this figure out of the tray. We're going to look at it strictly as is. Mostly because it's an older action figure. You're looking at something that's probably at least 20 years old. The quality control on the older DC collectibles weren't always the best. So, you know, I don't want to accidentally break this. And, you know, it's just, for me, it's just a nice display piece in the box. But we could take a look at the figure up close. If you're unfamiliar with the character of Magog, it was kind of like Mark Waid's and Alex Ross's social commentary on the state of DC superheroes during the late 90s. Visually, he kind of embodies everything wrong with superhero comic book design during that time period. I remember reading an interview with Alex Ross talking about how, a lot of the inspiration for this character visually was taken from Rob Liefeld's take on his creation, Cable, the popular X-Men superhero who is also the leader of the New Mutants and X-Force. Much like Cable, he has the cybernetic arm. It's a much older character, as you can see in the face. And then, just like Cable, he was adorned with all these ridiculous, like, pouches and holsters all over his body. You can easily do a head swap with a Cable action figure and just call it Cable, And it's kind of funny because down the road later on, Marvel would kind of do a 180 and they'd kind of like almost take certain elements of Magog and adopt those onto Cable. For example, the spear here. Some of you might remember that time period when Cable was no longer using his giant guns and he was more so relying on his telekinesis and a funky spear. But this is a nice action figure. It's really well crafted, well sculpted. In my opinion, the sculpting holds up today. The action figure engineering, though, on the other hand, leaves much to be desired. You're looking at something that probably only has maybe 5 to 7 points of articulation. During this time period, collectors, I think, were more so concerned with the sculpting of an action figure and the detailed, as opposed to nowadays where, everyone wants everything. You want the beautifully detailed action figure, but you also want that articulation and posability. Back then, figures like this were meant to be more so be display pieces. This was something that you'd put on your bookshelf next to the graphic novel. Action figure photography back then was virtually unheard of. So this was much more so just like a miniature statue that you just put on display and look at. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was a very different time period back then. Collecting sensibilities were a little bit different. But yeah, beautiful action figure. Size comparison. This is something that's probably within the 6-inch scale. Here he is next to a Marvel Legends action figure. Roughly around the same height. Here he is next to a McFarlane DC Multiverse figure, which completely towers over it. So yeah. Very stoked to have this in my collection. A big fan of Magog. I especially enjoyed it when he was a member of the Justice Society of America, maybe like 12 years ago. Alright, so enough about this. Let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. Alright, later.